On a cold night, she did a simple, decent thing. She pressed her hands to a stranger's wounds and stayed until his breathing steadied. She didn't know he was the city's most powerful tycoon. At dawn, engines lined her street boots on gravel, 100 men forming a wall around her small house. What comes next will pull her into a dangerous feud, expose the lie that put a target on her back, and prove that one act of kindness can change everything. Nights at the hospital always held a particular scent, antiseptic threaded with the cold bite of the air conditioning, now and then cut by the distant wail of an ambulance. After 3 years as an A nurse, Maya Bennett had learned to live inside that atmosphere. Tonight, though, the fatigue felt heavier than usual. A 16-hour shift had dragged her eyelids low and set a tremor in her hands each time she wrote in a patient's chart. She was just about to lean back for a moment's rest when the A doors burst open. 2 men in black suits hurried in, holding up a tall man whose white shirt was soaked with blood. "Oh my God!" Maya breathed, her chest tightening. The man lifted his head. For a heartbeat, as the neon glow slid across his face, Maya met a pair of cold gray eyes, razor-sharp, commanding, and chilling enough to send a shiver through her. Unlike ordinary patients who pleaded for life, his gaze was arrogant, issuing orders rather than begging. "He's losing a lot of blood," Maya shouted, yanking a gurney over. "Lay him down now." The 2 bodyguards obeyed awkwardly, then quickly slipped out, leaving the room with only Maya and the stranger. Blood soaked her gloves as she carefully cut away the outer shirt. A deep slash ran along his ribcage, sharp and clean from a blade. Maya bit her lip, forcing herself to stay calm. Her mind swarmed with questions. Why would someone be wandering at night in this condition? Who had done this to him? And for what reason? "Were you just in an accident?" she asked as she disinfected the wound. The man didn't answer. His chiseled face remained cold as stone, only twitching slightly when the alcohol burned raw flesh. Maya's irritation flared. She was far too exhausted to deal with the silent patient. "You know, you're lucky I hadn't gone home yet. Otherwise, you'd probably be dead by now." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips, icy yet carrying the weight of a sigh. "I don't die that easily." "Yeah, well, your blood is still pouring out like a waterfall," Maya snapped back, her hands swiftly stitching each line. Every stitch felt like a needle into her own heart, not from fatigue, but from the strange mix of worry for this man and anger at his reckless disregard for life. The air grew thick, broken only by the snip of thread and his heavy breathing. Maya realized his silence wasn't empty at all. It was like a fortress he had built around himself, a wall that held secrets, danger, and loneliness. If you're enjoying this story so far, subscribe to our channel. Your like, comment, and share help unlock the next chapter. At last, when she finished bandaging the wound, Maya looked up, ready to scold him again, but his eyes stopped her. They no longer glinted with ice. There was instead a fleeting weariness that cut down to the bone. Her voice softened. "You need to stay for observation. If there's an infection, no need." He cut her off, rising with a terrifying calm, as though the injury were nothing more than a scratch. His hand trembled faintly as it held the blood-stained jacket, but his eyes remained proud. Maya blocked him. "Where are you going?" "That wound." He leaned in close enough that Maya caught the faint trace of cologne, mixed with the metallic tang of blood. His voice was low, gravelly, each word dropping like a warning. "You shouldn't get involved with me." Then he turned, walking away, leaving a faint trail of blood across the stark white floor. The door closed behind him. Maya stood frozen, her hands still shaking, her heart racing wildly, his words echoing in her mind. A mysterious man, a wound soaked in blood, eyes like an abyss, and a chilling warning. She told herself, "I'll never see him again," but some vague instinct whispered to Maya that this was only the beginning of a storm far greater than she could imagine. The morning after a shift that felt endless, all Maya wanted was a dreamless sleep. She pulled back the curtains, letting pale sunlight spill into her small apartment. The kettle whistled, the smell of coffee rose, and everything seemed ordinary until the roar of engines from the street seeped in through every crack. She stepped out onto the balcony with her mug in hand. The quiet street of her old neighborhood had turned into a makeshift military parking lot. 3 glossy black SUVs lined the curb. A van blocked the entrance, and men in suits with earpieces stood in a semicircle around the building. One was sketching on the hood of a car. 2 others scanned the rooftops as if expecting snipers. Her coffee nearly slipped from her hand. No way, neighbors began to peek out. The elderly woman downstairs clutched her fluffy cat and shouted up, "Filming a movie, dear." 3 kids across the street pressed their faces to the window, eyes shining. A middle-aged man kicked his tire, muttering, "Perfect. Morning traffic already." And now the roads were blocked. The doorbell rang insistently. Maya threw on a cardigan and opened the door. A man stood straight as a post, mid-30s, suit buttoned with precision, clean-shaven, dark eyes, calm. He gave a slight nod and handed her a business card. "Good morning, Miss Bennett. I'm Caleb Stone, private security detail. We're here to protect our boss's savior." A prickling sensation crawled down Maya's spine. Savior of who? Caleb looked at her, his voice measured. "Last night, you saved our boss from a serious wound. We reviewed the hospital cameras. There's reason to believe his enemies saw you." "Enemies?" Maya choked. She blinked, catching sight of 4 more men setting up what looked like a checkpoint at the end of the hall. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. "Do you people think I'm the heroine of some action movie?" Caleb's expression didn't change. "Not a movie. Minimal protocol." "Your minimal protocol includes what exactly?" "Ruining the entire block's morning."
Jamming up the mail truck, scaring my downstairs neighbor into a heart attack. "The mailman has been cleared. No explosives," Caleb said seriously. "And we gave the lady a new cat carrier as an apology." "Oh, for crying out loud." Maya pressed her forehead against the doorframe. Through her fingers, she saw one guard holding up a pink cat carrier, apologizing profusely to the old woman. Another lugged a huge paper bag labeled bread, 50 loaves, having taken supplies literally. "No one comes into my apartment," Maya said slowly. "No following me into the bathroom. No lurking outside my windows. No machine scanning, whatever. This is my home." Caleb nodded. "We'll keep the perimeter only. Still, you shouldn't leave until further orders." "Orders from who?" Maya lifted her chin. "That mysterious boss of yours?" Silence. Caleb tilted his head slightly, as if listening to someone through his earpiece, then lowered his voice. "I understand the inconvenience, but last night there was an incident. We can't risk it. You were seen at the IA. If anyone thinks you matter, they might." "That's enough." Maya cut him off. Deep down, fear sprouted quietly, like the ground shifting beneath her feet. "I'm a nurse. I save people. I don't want to be tangled in enemies, boss's security, or any of your quotation marks." Her phone chimed. Unknown number. A message with just 2 sentences. "Sorry for the noise. I'll take responsibility." Signed a K. Maya's heart skipped. A K, the gray eyes from last night. The faint cologne mixed with blood. The razor-sharp warning. "You shouldn't get involved with me." Pieces collided in her head, sparking. She typed back before she could think. "I don't need a Hollywood film crew outside my house. Send them away now." The typing dots appeared, then vanished. A long pause. Finally, a reply. "I can't, just today. Don't go outside. Miss Bennett." Caleb's voice broke the silence, polite but firm. "We'll cut down numbers and clear the road, but please stay inside until noon. If you need anything, call this number." He handed her another sheet. Hotline contacts, one labeled grocery supply team. Supply team? Maya glanced at the 50-loaf bread bag inside. Fine. 3 conditions. 1. No aiming things at my neighbors. 2. Don't block the garbage truck. 3. Don't call me a target or asset. I'm a human being. Understood. Caleb noted it down in a real notebook as if documenting a peace treaty. We'll switch terminology to medical client. And he hesitated a beat. Sorry for frightening you. The door shut again. Maya leaned against the wall, listening as the hallway slowly quieted. She looked around her tiny kitchen. The basil growing in a tin can. The porcelain teacups her mom found at a flea market. The ordinary things suddenly felt fragile against the steady footsteps outside. Her phone buzzed again. This time a call, unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? A low, husky voice muffled as though through tape. Are you all right? Maya's spine snapped straight. You're the man from last night. Silence. On the other end, she caught the sound of a door opening, wind rushing over the microphone. Then his voice dropped, steady and raw. Don't be afraid. I won't let anyone touch you. Who are you? Maya pressed. Who are you really? More silence when he spoke again. It wasn't a name. I owe you a life. You don't owe me anything. I was doing my job. She bit her lip. But that life of yours is trampling all over mine. A quiet exhale. I'll fix it just today. The call ended. Maya stared at the black screen, helpless. There was something in his voice. Not just command, but a scar of exhaustion, the same as last night. And she hated that her heart understood. Noise surged again outside. She pulled the curtain aside. The security team looked less like an invasion now. 3 men at the corners. The van gone. A local cop approached Caleb. Caleb showed him papers. The officer nodded, then asked for a photo with the old woman's cat. Maya burst out laughing, startled by the sound of it in her own throat. A text from Sophie Lynn, her best friend, popped up like salvation. Is there a Netflix shoot at your house? Attached was a picture from the street. Maya in her oversized sweater on the balcony, with 3 black dots below like punctuation marks stamped on the road. Not Netflix. A nightmare in suits, Maya replied. Sophie sent a string of laughing emojis. Come on, if their boss is hot, don't chase them off. Not funny, Maya typed. I'm scared. Really scared, the cursor blinked. Then Sophie's message came. Want to stay at my place? Maya glanced outside as if sensing her thought. Caleb looked up toward the balcony. She couldn't just stay somewhere else when the net outside was wide enough to smother her entire life overnight. She opened the door again. Caleb turned instantly. I have a few ground rules. Maya drew a deep breath. 1. If you knock, knock softly. 2. No eavesdropping. 3. If deja vu strikes and you want to supply me again. She pointed at the bread bag. 2 loaves, not 50. The corner of Caleb's mouth twitched, faint as pencil lead. Understood. 2 loaves. And Maya added, her voice softening. If someone really dangerous comes, what will you do? Stop them before they get close. Caleb met her eyes. No one steps across your door. That's my promise and my boss's. Your boss? Maya repeated, the metallic taste of last night back in her throat. What kind of man is he? Caleb paused so briefly it almost went unnoticed. A man who pays his debts and doesn't let his people get hurt. The door shut once more. On the mat lay a small package wrapped in brown craft paper. Inside were sterile medical bandages, chamomile tea, and a handwritten note in neat, sharp script. Sorry for the noise. I hope you can get some rest. Maya stood there for a long time, the thin paper trembling in her hand, listening as the street quieted, her heart slowing, then racing again for another reason. She wanted her ordinary life back, but ordinary had slipped from her grasp the moment those gray eyes met hers under the hospital lights. Outside, suited men rotated shifts, movement steady as clockwork. Overhead, the sun slowly pushed light into every corner of the room. Maya closed the curtains, leaned against the door, and finally admitted to herself that the storm had arrived and it brought an army. She lifted the chamomile tea, sank into a chair, trying to coax herself into sleep. Just before her eyes closed, her phone buzzed once more. The final message of the morning. "I will come to apologize in person this afternoon." Maya stared at the 3 letters, a feeling dropping and rippling inside her like a pebble striking water. Circles spread outward, touching things she couldn't yet name. She turned off the screen. "Don't come," she whispered, though no one could hear. Yet deep down she knew he would, and the next chapter of this storm would open right at her doorstep. That morning, before sunlight had even spilled past Maya's curtains, the small neighborhood was already unusually noisy. People clustered in groups, whispering and pointing, all eyes fixed on one place, her house. Dozens of men in black suits, earpieces clipped in, stood in a strict formation on her porch like a presidential security detail. Maya woke to the commotion, half convinced that a movie crew had arrived to film an action scene. She threw on a coat in a panic and rushed outside. "What on earth is going on?" she blurted, her hair messy, her voice still from sleep. A neighbor tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Word is some powerful guy sent them to protect you." "Maya, are you in debt to the mob?" "Oh, for heaven's sake," Maya groaned, a vein throbbing at her temple. She hadn't even managed to explain before a sleek black luxury car rolled up to the gate. The door opened, and out stepped a tall man in a navy suit, a silver-striped tie, polished shoes gleaming in the sun. Maya went still. It was the same wounded neighbor from last night, only now, instead of torn fabric and smeared blood, he looked like power made human, as if he'd stepped off the cover of a business magazine. The crowd quieted. Only the wind threading through the trees broke the silence. "Adrian Kingsley," someone breathed, and the murmurs swelled. "Kingsley as in Kingsley Holdings, the finance mogul? He practically owns the city." Maya stayed planted, jaw slack. You're who?" she managed. Adrian strode toward her, each step closing the distance. He halted before her and slipped off his sunglasses, exposing those cold steel gray eyes that seemed bottomless. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you," he said, voice low and even. "I'm Adrian Kingsley, and the moment you stitched me up last night, you walked into my world." Maya frowned, mind still reeling. "Your world? You mean stocks? Land auctions? That sounds dangerous. More than you realize," he answered, holding her gaze. "In my world, a deal can be settled in blood. I have enemies, and because you saved me, they'll target you now." Maya narrowed her eyes, stifling a scoff. "Terrifying. So how deep are you with the bank that you need a small army posted outside my house?" A few guards let out quick laughs, cutting them off when Adrian's glance skimmed over them. His mouth tipped, somewhere between a grimace and acceptance. She couldn't decide which. "You still think this is a joke?" he asked, quieter now, fatigue roughening the edges. Arms crossing at her waist, Maya planted herself, unmoved by the intimidating wall of men. "All I know is I stayed up all night patching up a mysterious neighbor, woke up to find my street looking like an action set, and discovered that neighbor is the city's most notorious tycoon. And I'm supposed to just take that on faith?"
Something flickered in Adrian's eyes, surprise, and something like curiosity. No one in finance ever spoke to him like this. But Maya wasn't intimidated. She challenged him. He leaned in, breath grazing her ear. "I don't expect instant trust," he murmured. "But I do have to keep you safe. It isn't optional." It's my responsibility." She looked up, her eyes catching the thin morning light. A retort rose to her lips, but his stare held more than ice. There was a thread of concern there that stalled her. A strange ripple moved through her chest. Neighbors still gaped and whispered from the curb. Maya grabbed his sleeve, tugging him inside and away from the spectacle. When the door clicked shut, she braced her palms on the table and let out a long breath. "I never imagined I'd be involved with a finance mogul. This is insane." Adrian loosened his tie, sank into her sofa, and closed his eyes briefly. "You can think that, but insane or not, I won't let anyone hurt you." Maya stared at him, her thoughts tangled like threads. Her mind screamed that this was nothing but a nightmare, that tomorrow everything would go back to normal. But her heart whispered that the moment she bandaged his wound last night, her quiet life had changed forever. She sighed, shaking her head. "Your world and mine are worlds apart. I don't believe I can stand in it." Adrian opened his eyes, his gaze sharp yet steady. "That's why I'll stand with you." Rumors spread faster than any fire. Just days after the siege at Maya's house, the financial world buzzed with whispers. Kingsley has a secret girlfriend, a regular nurse. And those whispers didn't stay confined to luxurious boardrooms. They reached the ears of Victor Kane, Adrian's greatest rival. Kane didn't believe in coincidences. To him, anyone who appeared beside Adrian Kingsley could become a pawn on the chessboard. And in Maya Bennett, with her ordinary background, was the easiest weakness to exploit. Maya noticed it first. On her way to work, she spotted a stranger tailing her. A man in a wrinkled shirt pretending to read a newspaper, but his eyes never left her. At the hospital, someone in a baseball cap sat in the waiting room for hours without ever seeking treatment. Her chest tightened, the very air around her seeming to suffocate. One evening, when she returned to her apartment, Adrian was already waiting at the door. "Someone's investigating you," he said bluntly. "It's Kane. He wants to use you to pressure me." Maya threw her bag onto a chair, exasperated. "I told you from the start. I just wanted a normal life, but you dragged me into your world. So what now?" Adrian's gray eyes didn't waver. "I'm sorry, but there's no turning back now. If I don't want you to become a target, I need to make something public." Maya folded her arms. "And what would that be?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You'll become my girlfriend in name." For a moment, Maya thought she had misheard. Then she let out a bitter laugh. "Girlfriend? Ridiculous. You think just saying that will make Kane leave me alone?" "At the very least, it'll make him hesitate," Adrian replied, his eyes burning with conviction. "To a man like Kane, the women in my life are untouchable territory. If he dares, it's a direct challenge to me." Maya reeled. "You're talking like I'm your human shield." "No," Adrian shook his head. "You're the only one who's ever saved me without asking for anything. You deserve to be protected, even if this is the cost." Maya turned away, her heartbeat stumbling. She wanted to argue, to scream, but deep inside, some fragile part of her trembled at his words. The next day, Maya still went to the hospital. But this time, when she stepped out after a night shift, she walked straight into chaos. Several paparazzi stood waiting, cameras raised. One lunged forward, thrusting out a recorder. "Are you Adrian Kingsley's new girlfriend? Where did you meet him? How does an ordinary nurse catch the eye of a financial tycoon?" Maya's face went pale, her chest constricting. She tried to back away to slip past, but the crowd pressed in tighter. Just then, a black car pulled up. The door opened, and Adrian stepped out. Dark suit, steady stride, eyes cold as a blade. For a few seconds, the reporters fell silent. He walked straight to Maya, not a flicker of hesitation. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her firmly against him, shielding her from the onslaught of lenses. "That's enough," he said, his voice low but cutting. "She's my girlfriend, and he turned to the cameras, gray eyes flashing like tempered steel. "Touch her and you touch me." The air froze. The reporters swallowed hard, none daring to take another step. A few shutters still clicked, but their hands trembled under the weight of invisible pressure. Maya was stunned. Heat rushed through her body, her heart racing wildly. She wanted to shove him away, to scream for dragging her into this performance. But at the same time, the warmth of his arm around her, the thundering of his heartbeat so close, stole her words away. Only once they carried them off did she erupt. "You've lost your mind in front of everyone. You said I was your girlfriend." Adrian leaned back, his gaze never leaving hers. "Did you see how they didn't dare touch you anymore? That's why." Maya bit her lip, shaking with fury. "You turned me into a piece in your power game." "No," Adrian said, leaning closer, his hand brushing hers, making her flinch. "I just want you safe. And sometimes safety requires a declaration." Maya turned to the window, hiding her flushed face. She was still angry, but deep down his words, "Touch her, and you touch me," echoed in her mind, making her heart stumble. The next morning, Maya started her early shift. She had thought this 2-week pretend girlfriend arrangement would be nothing more than an invisible shield. But no, Adrian Kingsley was present in every breath she took. And today, he appeared right at the entrance of the ER. No bodyguards, no gleaming black car, just a man in a charcoal shirt and long coat standing straight among the waiting patients like he belonged. But he didn't belong. Curious eyes from patients, nurses, and doctors swept over him again and again. The morning light hit the bridge of his nose, making him stand out like a spotlight. Maya tried to pretend she hadn't noticed, but he had already caught her eye. "Good morning," he said, his voice low and smooth. "What are you doing here?" She hissed, weaving past patients to reach him. "This is a hospital, not a press conference. You told me not to interfere with your work." He lifted both hands slightly, face calm. "But I do have a checkup for my wound." And his voice dropped as he leaned in, his breath brushing her ear. "It's also my chance to see you without cameras lurking." Maya's cheeks burned. "Sit down. Don't draw attention." But how could he not draw attention? Adrian Kingsley filled out medical forms, as though he were signing a multi-million-dollar contract. In the box for marital status, he scrawled 2 words, "Taken." Maya snatched the paper from him. "What are you doing?" "This isn't a joke." "Not joking," he replied, lips curving slightly. "Just being honest with the situation." Maya ground her teeth.
"If you don't cooperate, I'll let the blood pressure cuff pinch your arm till it bursts." For some reason, the threat made him laugh softly. A rare sound, fleeting, but enough to make a few nurses stop and stare. Maya wished the floor would swallow her whole. That evening, the roles reversed. This time, it wasn't Maya dragging Adrian. It was him taking her. "Just a small party. Show up with me for a few minutes, then you can leave," he said as the limousine stopped in front of the city's grandest Astor hotel. Small? Maya gaped through the window. Red carpet, flashing cameras, gowns glittering like silver waves. "You think this looks like a corner brass Finch cafe?" He turned, gray eyes sharp yet soothing. "Don't worry, I'm here," and then he held out his hand. Maya didn't want to take it, but if she didn't, she'd stumble in the borrowed heels Sophie had lent her. So she placed her hand in his, the sensation like gripping a live wire, dangerous, impossible to let go. Inside, chandeliers shattered light into 1,000 fragments. Violins swelled. The air was heavy with perfume and the scent of wine-soaked laughter. And suddenly, Maya was the center of attention. Not because she wanted to be, but because every gaze was on Adrian Kingsley, and beside him was her. "Miss Bennett." The greeting came from a middle-aged businessman, then another, then a cluster of them. They bowed slightly, extended hands, and smiled at her as if she were already an indispensable piece of this glittering world. Maya froze. Miss Bennett. She had never been called that. At least not with such formality, respect, even caution. At the hospital, she was Nurse Maya Bennett on the night shift. Maya, grab more gauze. Here she was suddenly the potential lady of an empire. Adrian moved effortlessly through it all, as though he had lived his whole life for such greetings. His hand rested lightly on her back, guiding her through the crowd. Every touch was a wordless reminder. Keep walking. I'm here. Maya wanted to vanish. She forced polite smiles, nodding at compliments, her head spinning. A young businesswoman admired her dress. Maya almost blurted, "Thanks. My friend lent it to me." Amid the blur, she noticed a stare. Across the room, a stranger with cold eyes held a glass loosely, watching them. Adrian saw him too. Just a glance, but his hand tightened against her back. And Maya felt it. The collision of two worlds. Her white nurse's coat and his black tailored suit had slammed together, leaving a crack that couldn't easily be mended. She didn't belong here. Yet, he was walking her through it as if this path were inevitable. When the party finally ended, Maya exhaled like someone escaping a stage play. On the drive back, she couldn't hold it in. "See, I was completely lost in there. I'm just a nurse. I don't know how to smile like them, how to toast the right way. You were yourself." Adrian cut her off. His voice was firm as steel, but his eyes strangely warm. "That's what makes you different. They bowed because you stood beside me. But he paused, his tone softening. "I bow because you dared to walk in there even though you were afraid." Maya went quiet. Her chest swelled with something sharp and sweet, unnameable. She wanted to deny it, to insist this was all pretend. But somewhere deep inside, a part of her already believed him. Outside, the city drifted by in golden light like a river of stars flowing backward. Inside the car, two worlds, hospital and ballroom, white coat and black suit, had collided, sparking the first flames of a coming storm. After the dazzling night that felt more like a stage play than a party, Maya returned to the harsh neon glare of the hospital. The scent of antiseptic drowned out every luxury perfume, and the cries of children cut deeper than any round of applause. She reminded herself the 2-week pretend girlfriend arrangement was only a circle drawn around the edges. At the center, her work, the children, unexplained fevers, those wide innocent eyes, was still hers. That morning, the pediatric ward received an unexpected shipment: 2 new ventilators, 3 automatic syringe pumps, and a brand new multi-parameter monitor. The technicians unboxing them gasped like kids discovering new toys. "This wasn't in this year's budget," the head nurse muttered, both relieved and uneasy. "Who approved this?" "No one," the warehouse staff chuckled, holding out an invoice stamped paid in full. "Anonymous donor." In the corner, a small handwritten note whispered, "Don't put up a plaque. If you want to thank me, let the night shift have 10 minutes for tea." Maya froze. Just a streak of ink. But the picture in her mind clicked together. The chamomile tea left at her door. The clipped apologies, the definitive punctuation. She didn't need a signature. She had heard that voice long enough to recognize his traces in silence. At noon, Dr. Arjun Mehta held a quick meeting in the break room. "Good news," he said, pushing up his glasses, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "The NICU has been upgraded, and we've got a small fund for toys in the waiting room." He hesitated, glancing around before lowering his voice, as if he didn't want their name attached. When the room emptied, Maya poured him some water. "Doctor, who do you think did this?" Dr. Arjun smiled wearily. "For those who've gone far enough, the name doesn't matter as much as the way they leave," he winked. "But if you see them, tell them Nurse Maya Bennett's night shift absolutely deserves 10 minutes for tea." Maya blushed, hiding her smile behind a plastic cup. She neither denied nor admitted, just warmth spreading through her chest like walking in the rain, and suddenly finding an umbrella overhead without asking. That afternoon, Maya administered medication to a 4-year-old boy named Milo, whose hair was cropped short and who was clutching a plastic green dinosaur.
He frowned at the needle, wincing as it touched his skin. Maya blew gently on his hand, telling him the dinosaur was brave enough to sleep without fear of the dark. "Dinosaurs don't sleep," Milo insisted through baby teeth, blinking fast to fight back tears. "Oh, then what do they do at night?" "They go on patrol," he answered gravely. Maya chuckled, finished bandaging, then straightened, only to be caught by a sweep of light across the floor. She looked up at the ceiling. Tiny stars twirled slowly, blue and purple specks drifting down the walls like meteor showers. The children in the waiting room gasped in chorus. She stepped into the hall. Caleb stood beside a giant cardboard box labeled Galaxy Projector. He scratched his ear, looking unusually sheepish. "A bit oversized," he remarked. Maya put her hands on her hips. "You planning to build an entire Milky Way in pediatrics?" Originally, the boss picked the smaller version, Caleb said in a low voice, like sharing a secret. "But the sales clerk said the Pro was prettier." "The boss?" she asked, though she already knew. "The man who pays his debts," he answered without blinking. Maya looked back at the stars rolling over the walls, the children craning their necks, parents snapping pictures as their kids finally stopped crying. A whole universe inside one small room. She pressed her lips together, swallowing her thanks. She had made a rule: don't let him spill into her work, but light draws circles you can't control. She typed a message after deleting it several times. "The ventilators work perfectly. Thanks for the sky." Then sent. Dots appeared, then vanished, as if the man on the other side weighed each word. Finally, chamomile tea at 10 p.m. Don't forget the 10 minutes. Maya burst out laughing softly, tucking her phone away. Her heart didn't flutter like in soap operas. It simply shifted a beat, slow and then quickening like a runner stumbling on a sudden slope. Night fell, and the hospital quieted. The rattle of stainless steel wheels down shiny floors became the metronome of the shift. Maya walked the ward, hands clasped behind her back. Milo slept hugging his dinosaur, fever cooling. In the waiting area, the artificial sky glimmered, stars working silently, making people forget for a moment they were at a hospital. Close to 10 p.m., the head nurse rolled a small tray into the break room. Chamomile tea, butter cookies, and a note. 10 minutes, orders from the benefactor. A smiley face scribbled at the end. Maya hesitated, then carried the tray down to a quiet corner in the first-floor lobby. She set it on the table and leaned back. The overhead yellow light softened everything. Fatigue draped over her like a heavy blanket. 10 minutes, she whispered, closing her eyes. She didn't know when she drifted off, only that when she woke, a blanket covered her shoulders. It was a thin gray blanket, smelling of night air mixed with a familiar trace. Clean, deep fate, yet persistent. Across from her, Adrian sat with his hands laced, eyes fixed on the revolving doors. His coat stayed on, his tie was gone, and his sleeves were rolled to the forearms, just as they'd been that morning. The set of his face had eased. A small paper bag rested by his side, a corner of a bandage box poking out. "When did you get here?" Maya drew the blanket tighter and pushed herself upright, her voice betraying a flicker of fluster. "Just before you fell asleep," he murmured. "Caleb is outside." "I didn't go into staff areas." He dipped his head slightly, as if to underline the boundary. "I only put the blanket on. Exactly 10 minutes, she noted, eyeing the clock. "Impeccable timing. I asked security to give me a heads up when the time was nearly over," he said, the faintest smile touching his mouth. "Don't tell the head nurse." Maya let out a small laugh and quiet return. The night lobby settled like a well-fed cat. The automatic doors breathed open and shut without a sound. The clock released seconds in drops. In that hush, She found herself watching him longer than she meant to. No chandeliers, no red carpet, no executives bowing, just a man sitting still, back straight by habit, eyes leveled on the doors by another habit, waiting. "You don't have to do all this," she said softly. "The donations, the machines, the stars, even the blanket."
"There are things I can't not do," he replied. "Not because I'm virtuous, but because I know how it feels to wait on a door that never opens. I hate that feeling. You've waited before?" The question slipped out and hung between them. He looked down at his hands. The knuckles were clean, unmarked, yet she remembered the faint scar under his eye, the pale line tracing his cheekbone. "I have," he said. Then he lifted his gaze, gray eyes no longer cold, only deeper. "And when I can, I want to keep someone else from waiting." Maya wasn't the type to melt for pretty lines. Her work had taught her the difference between comfort and a bandage. But tonight, it wasn't the words, it was the quiet acts without plaques, ribbons, or cameras that spoke louder. Something in the place she thought unbreakable softened. "The chamomile's cold now," she said, steadying her voice. "Cold tea doesn't change what it does." He shrugged, echoing her own casual tone. 10 minutes is 10 minutes, she nodded, lifting the cup. "Thank you for everything. Even though I told you not to spill into my work, I stayed outside the door," he answered. "Sometimes I only hand over a blanket." They both laughed. The sound fell onto the tiled floor and dissolved like steam. Before standing, Maya pulled off the blanket to return it. But Adrian laid a hand on the edge, holding it a moment. His eyes sought hers. For the first time since they met, there was no command, no strategy, no my world, only a wordless question. "Sleep a little longer," he said softly, as if afraid of waking someone else in the night. "I'm here." 2 simple words. "I'm here." Fell gently but struck deep. Maya nodded, leaned back, eyes drifting shut through her lashes. She still caught his outline fading and sharpening with her breath. Beyond, the artificial stars spun, scattering threads of light across the floor. Her heart didn't change direction overnight. It only shifted a millimeter toward the man sitting there. But sometimes a millimeter is enough for one straight line to split into 2 distinct lines. And Maya knew from the moment the blanket touched her shoulders, something between them had quietly moved. No trumpets, no fanfare, just a small act only the 2 of them would remember. As she slipped into sleep, Adrian stayed still, eyes fixed on the revolving doors as always. But his gaze had changed. Less steel, more of something unspoken. If anyone stood close, they might have felt the rarest air around him. Not power, not wealth, but the tenderness of a man who, for the first time, feared breaking a heart other than his own. Rain pounded hard that evening, each drop drumming relentlessly against the glass walls of the 40th floor office at Kingsley Holdings. Adrian stood before the massive window, his gray eyes sweeping over the city, glowing beneath him like a giant chessboard. But tonight, that chessboard wasn't still. The phone in his hand had rung 3 times already, always with the same unfamiliar steel-cold voice. "If you want to see her again, bring the contract." The Riverside property must belong to Kane. Maya had vanished right after her afternoon shift. She was supposed to meet Sophie for dinner, but never made it to the restaurant. When Caleb reported the news, Adrian felt as though an iron hand had closed around his chest. This wasn't the first time the real estate mogul had faced threats, but it was the first time anyone dared touch the circle he had drawn around someone he swore to protect. Caleb set the recorder on the desk. They used a burner phone, but in the background, train horns likely near the old docks. Adrian didn't respond. His fingers tapped slowly against the glass, his eyes fixed on the city lights beyond. "Kane, you've gone too far." Maya woke in the dimness of an abandoned warehouse. The air reeked of damp wood and rusted metal. Her wrists were bound behind her, her mouth uncovered. The only sound was a steady drip from a leaking roof. The iron door screeched open. A narrow-faced man stepped inside, his smile as sharp as a blade. "Miss Bennett." His voice was sickly sweet. "Apologies for the inconvenience. We only want a little cooperation from your boyfriend." Maya swallowed hard. "He's not my boyfriend." "Oh, but the press says otherwise, and he's tearing the city apart for you. So tomorrow he'll sign over the Riverside project to me. In return, you go home in one piece." "And if he doesn't?" Maya asked, steadying her voice. The man's smile widened. "Then you stay here forever." He left, the door slamming shut, plunging the room back into shadows. Maya's heart hammered, fear surging like a tidal wave. But amid the terror, one thought cut through. If Adrian signed, he would lose everything. If he didn't, a guard's phone buzzed. He switched on the speaker, shoving it toward her. "Any last words for Mr. Kingsley?" Maya drew a breath, forcing every ounce of courage into her voice. "Adrian, listen to me. Don't sign. Don't trade everything for me. I trust you to find another way." For a heartbeat, silence. She thought the line had gone dead. Then his voice came, deep and steady like a lifeline pulling her upright. "Hold on, I'm coming." The guard snorted, cutting the call. But inside Maya, fear gave way to a spark of light, small but unyielding. Kingsley Holdings' office became a battlefield. The contract for the Riverside project lay on the table, waiting for a signature. Advisors crowded around, urging, "It's just one project, Mr. Kingsley. Sign it. Get her back." Adrian sat unmoving. His gray eyes looked carved from ice, but beneath them churned a storm. He had lost deals before, sacrificed opportunities. However, Maya was not a deal to be bargained with. He remembered her words. "I trust you." That trust wasn't something he would betray with ink on paper. "No signature," he said, voice razor sharp. "Kane wants to corner me. He'll see the consequences." Caleb nodded, his own eyes flashing with determination. "We've narrowed it down to 4 warehouses near the docks. Vehicles are ready." Adrian rose, pulling on his long coat. Every movement was like a blade being unsheathed. "Prepare. I'm going." "Boss, let us." Caleb began. "No," Adrian cut him off. "Kane wants me, not you. And Maya, she's inside my circle. No one else touches it." Inside the warehouse, Maya sat against the wall, straining to hear the shuffle of footsteps outside. Her heart pounded wildly, a mix of terror and hope. Suddenly, the iron door burst open. Flashlights cut through the dark, accompanied by a sharp command. "Drop your weapons." The snap of guns cocking echoed chaotically. Maya flinched, but then a figure surged forward, swift and decisive, as though even the air made way for him. Adrian. Time slowed. He disarmed one man with a twist, floored another with a single strike. Caleb and the security team stormed in behind him, clearing the room in minutes. When the chaos stilled, Adrian knelt and untied Maya's wrists. "You actually came," she whispered, her voice trembling, eyes shining with tears. "Did you think I'd let them keep you?" His gray eyes burned like fire. "No one has that right." She wanted to scold him for being reckless, to scream from the fear. But the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she whispered, "I told you not to sign." "And I didn't," he answered, his warm hand closing over hers. "Because I trust you. The way you trusted me." Maya felt tears rising, not from fear, but from the way her heart, knocked off course long ago, had suddenly found its path again. And that path, she knew, led straight toward the man in front of her. Outside, sirens wailed, red and blue lights flashing across the rain-slick ground. In the space between wind, water, and racing breath, 2 worlds that once seemed irreconcilable touched in a silent vow. Nothing and no one could force them to let go. The wind howled across the docks, carrying the sting of salt, rust, and bone-cutting cold. The night was ripped apart by the floodlights from black vehicles surrounding the warehouse. Inside, between towering rows of wooden crates, came the sound of pounding footsteps, metal clashing, and ragged breathing. The rhythm of a battle. Adrian surged forward like an arrow loosed from its string. From the moment Maya had been bound in that dark room, he had no choice but to enter himself. Caleb and the security team secured the perimeter. But inside, Adrian wanted to face Kane and his men directly. Kingsley, Victor Kane's mocking laugh echoed off the cavernous walls. Of course, you couldn't let others fight for you. Still playing the hero, aren't you? Adrian didn't answer. His fist cracked against the nearest thug, sending the man's gun clattering to the ground. He pressed deeper, each step leaving bloody prints, his old wound torn open again. Maya, tied to a chair, cried out, "Adrian, don't!" Kane pressed a knife to her throat, eyes glittering with contempt. "The contract, Kingsley. Sign it, and I'll give her back. If not, double quotes." Adrian stopped, breath coming heavy. But his voice was so cold, it silenced the entire warehouse. "You don't understand, Kane. There are things I can sell, and there are things I can throw away. But this woman, she's not on that list." Kane faltered, then sneered. "This woman, she's just a nurse." "Don't make me laugh. Precisely because she's ordinary," Adrian said, eyes locked on Maya. "She's real. More real than everything you and I fight over out there." In the split second of Kane's distraction, Adrian lunged. The blade sliced across his arm, leaving a searing trail of blood, but he knocked the weapon free. The knife clanged across the floor. Maya squeezed her eyes shut, her heart plunging into darkness. Chaos erupted. Blows landed. Wood splintered. Groans filled the air. Adrian fought like a cornered beast, pouring every ounce of strength into shielding Maya. He thought of no escape, no strategy, only of putting himself between her and every strike, every blade. At last, Kane hit the ground, blood trickling from his lip. Adrian staggered, one hand clamped to the wound in his abdomen, the other trembling as he tore away Maya's ropes. "You're bleeding too much," Maya sobbed, pressing her palms to the gash, her hands flooding with crimson. "Why do you always have to make yourself the shield? Do you think you're immortal?" Adrian's lips twisted into a pained smile. "Not immortal, but at least now I know I'm worth your worry." The words broke her. Tears streamed down her cheeks, soaking his collar. "You idiot. If you die, then how am I supposed to go on?" His shaking hand brushed her face, featherlight. "Then you'll go on. Because you're stronger than you think." "No, I don't want to be that strong. I just want you alive," Maya cried, clinging to him as if her grip could hold back the life draining from him. Outside, Caleb and the team burst in. King was dragged away in chains, but Maya barely saw. The world had blurred to the man collapsing against her shoulder. "Get the boss out now," Caleb ordered. Two guards lifted Adrian, but he clung to Maya's hand, his fading eyes still glinting with strange pride. "See," he whispered. "I didn't sign a thing. I chose you." Maya bit down on her lip, choking on her own sobs. "Stop talking. Save your strength." Rain lashed their faces as they stumbled from the warehouse, mingling with blood and tears. Maya held him tight, trying desperately to staunch the wound. Her heart pounded wildly, fear consuming everything. But through the sirens in the distance, the strobing red and blue lights, one truth echoed inside her. He had staked everything, not for a deal, not for dominance, but for her. And Maya's heart, despite the fear and the anger, slipped out of rhythm and fastened itself to his. After that, the ambulance siren ripped through the wet night, red and blue scattering across puddles and fractured flashes. Maya perched beside the stretcher, her small hands clamped over Adrian's wound. Heat soaked through the gauze and into her skin, lighting every nerve on fire. "Stay with me," she whispered, voice shaking. You don't get to drift off. Look at me, Adrian. Gray eyes cracked open, struggling to find her in the stampede of noise sirens, boots, shouted orders. The look held a monarch's steel, but under it, a rare softness only she was permitted to see. The emergency room flared in harsh light, antiseptic biting the air. Figures moved like shadows. Voices cut fast and precise. Pulse dropping. Prep the IV. Maya wasn't scheduled tonight, but she wouldn't leave. I'm a nurse, let me in, she said, and no one pushed back. Her hands trembled as she sheared away the blood-soaked shirt, yet her gaze stayed fierce and steady. While the doctor stitched the deep gash along his abdomen, Maya kept to his side, dabbing the sweat from his brow. Each drive of the needle into his skin felt like it pierced straight through her. You're out of your mind, she muttered, tears spotting her gloves. Always charging first, always the shield. Did you ever once think if you fall, how am I supposed to go on? Adrian tried for a smile, a crooked line carved through pain. At least now I know I'm worth your worry. The words struck her all over again. Maya wanted to shout, wanted to curse him, but her throat locked. All she could do was hold his hand, terrified it would lose its warmth. By midnight, the surgery was over. Adrian was moved to recovery. The doctor reassured her, he's lucky. Serious but not fatal. He just needs a few days. Maya stayed by his bed, carefully replacing the bandages, just as she had on the night they met. The warm yellow light softened his sharp features, making him look less like a tycoon, more like a man exhausted by battle. She whispered, "Do you remember the first night I did this for you? You told me not to get involved, and now?" His gray eyes opened slowly, storm-swept but calm. He stared at her for a long moment before rasping, "I was wrong." Her heart stumbled. "Wrong? I could lose everything," he said, each word etched into the air. "But I can't lose you." The room fell silent, so quiet she could hear the heart monitor beeping steadily and sure. Each beat punctuated his vow. Tears spilled hot down her cheeks. Maya wanted to argue, to put distance back between them, but the truth swelling inside her was impossible to deny. She loved him. She had loved him from the moment he walked into the hospital, bleeding, cold, impossible, and unforgettable. "Adrian," her voice cracked. He lifted a hand slow and weak but unyielding, closing around hers. "I don't know how to love like a normal man. All I know is how to protect, how to shield. Sometimes clumsy, sometimes too hard. But if you'll let me," his breath shuddered, "I want to learn for you." Maya didn't answer with words. She bent down, tears wetting his cheek, and whispered, "Me too. I don't know when it happened, but I love you too." The distance between them closed. The kiss was soft, trembling, but real. Not a performance for the cameras, not a shield against enemies, but the truth of two hearts that had stopped lying to themselves. The hospital lights blurred. The rain outside still fell, but none of it mattered. Only the warmth of his lips, the rhythm of their hearts finding one beat, and an unspoken promise. From this moment, neither of them would face the storm alone. When their lips finally parted, Maya leaned her forehead against his, laughing softly through her tears. "Do you know I hate your world? It's danger, it's shadows, but I can't hate you." Adrian exhaled, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Good, because I have no intention of letting you leave it anymore." Beyond the glass, dawn broke. A pale new light spilled across the sky, carrying fragile hope. In that hospital room, amid wounds, blood, and fear, two people had finally found each other through nothing but the truth in their hearts. And for the first time in years, Adrian Kingsley closed his eyes, allowing himself to sleep in peace, because he knew when he opened them again, she would still be there. Weekend sunlight spilled gold across the windows of Maya's small apartment. She opened the window, letting in the cool breeze, carrying with it the faint scent of jasmine from the nearby park. Today, She wanted to try something they had never truly had before, a normal day. No contracts, no bodyguards, no press conferences, she declared. Just us. Adrian looked at her, half surprised, half amused. And what will we do? Eat ice cream, go see a movie, then cook dinner. Like any other couple, the little ice cream shop down the street buzzed with laughter. Maya picked a vanilla bar coated in chocolate, while Adrian went for mint. The sight of a powerful tycoon sitting on a plastic chair, carefully spooning ice cream, made Maya burst out laughing. When he spotted a smudge of ice cream on her nose, Adrian chuckled, then leaned down unexpectedly and wiped it away with his finger. "You're so adorable. You make me forget how to breathe." Maya blushed, her heart racing, but she didn't argue. Instead, she playfully bit down on her spoon, letting his gaze linger on her, hotter than the summer sun. Inside the movie theater, the dim glow wrapped around them. On screen, the leading man stumbled through a confession. And for the first time in his life, Adrian leaned close and whispered, "Should I copy him?" Before Maya could answer, his hand found hers in the dark, fingers laced, squeezing gently. Her heart pounded. When the screen flared bright, the light fell across his angled face, so close she could feel his breath. A clumsy brush of lips turned into a deeper, lingering kiss, hidden in the low hum of the audience's laughter. Maya leaned against his shoulder, realizing she had never felt so utterly belonging to someone as she did in that moment. That evening, Maya's small apartment rang with laughter as Adrian fumbled in the kitchen. He spilled water 3 times, chopped onions until his eyes watered red. Maya wiped the counter, teasing the real estate king, defeated by an onion. He slipped his arms around her waist from behind, his voice warm against her ear. "I'm not defeated. I just needed an excuse to be this close." Maya froze, her body heating. His breath fanned the back of her neck, his hands steady on her hips. Suddenly, knives and cutting boards blurred into a backdrop for something else. Desire. She turned, lips brushing his. At first, it was soft, tentative, but neither could hold back. Adrian pressed her gently against the counter, his hands sliding across her back, while Maya clutched his shirt. The kiss deepened, fierce and unrestrained, making up for all the restraint they had held until now. Dinner ended late. Candles burned low, leaving the room in a soft golden haze. Maya tidied up while Adrian stood still, watching her not as a man of power, but as a man consumed by want. "You know," he murmured, stepping closer. "All day I've been thinking about this moment." Before she could react, he bent down and swept her into his arms. Maya laughed in surprise, wrapping her arms around his neck. Adrian carried her toward the bedroom, each step deliberate, certain. The door closed. In that small room, a nurse and a tycoon finally met as equals. Candlelight spilled in, illuminating touches, lingering kisses, whispered words between gasps. That night, they weren't the fake girlfriend and the powerful mogul. They were simply a man and a woman who had found each other after the storm. Distance dissolved, leaving only closeness, breath, and the rhythm of 2 hearts beating as one. The next morning, Maya woke in the circle of his arms, her hair spread across his chest. He was still asleep, his face unguarded, softer than she had ever seen. She traced his sharp features, now smoothed by rest, like something out of a dream. She smiled and whispered, "So this is what normal feels like. And it's perfect." Adrian stirred, his arm tightening around her. "For me, normal means you," and in that instant, Maya knew no matter how violent the storms outside, they had found a rare peace within each other's embrace. The grand hall of the financial center glittered under chandeliers, crowded with black suits and elegant evening gowns. Reporters pressed together along the red carpet, cameras flashing non-stop. Everyone waited for the annual appearance of Adrian Kingsley, the most powerful real estate mogul in the city. But tonight, no one expected what he would bring. The doors opened. Adrian strode in, steady and commanding as always, his tailored suit flawless. But at his side, holding his hand tightly, was Maya Bennett in a simple pale blue dress. No sparkle, no extravagance. Whispers rippled instantly. "That's the nurse. I can't believe he brought her." A tycoon and an ordinary nurse. Maya's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break free from her chest. She could feel every pair of eyes on her, weighing, doubting. But Adrian's grip tightened around her hand, steadying her steps with strength that felt unshakable. He stopped in the center of the hall, the light falling across his sharp, calm face. When silence finally fell, his voice carried deep and clear. "This is Maya Bennett, the only woman who belongs to me. And if anyone thinks they can touch her, they touch me." Pierre froze. Businessmen bowed their heads. None dared to laugh. Cameras flashed again, but not to search for scandal. They captured the moment when a king of finance openly bent his pride to love. Maya gazed at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. In that moment, she knew this was no act, no shield. This was love placed in the open, in the brightest light, no matter the cost. When Adrian brought Maya home to meet her parents, they were hesitant. They knew his reputation, the rumors of ruthlessness in his empire. Her mother clutched Maya's hand, whispering nervously, "My daughter, are you sure?" "His world is too dangerous." Adrian dropped to one knee before her, his voice steady as steel. "I will protect her with everything I have. If I ever break that promise, I accept the judgment of this family." Maya's father looked him in the eye. In those storm-gray eyes, he saw not only power, but a love so fierce a man would risk his life to shield it. At last he sighed and smiled. "Then make my daughter happy." Maya's eyes brimmed as she embraced her parents. For the first time, she felt acceptance, not just from her family, but from fate itself. Their wedding was simple but warm. Not a gilded ballroom, but a Willowmere garden bathed in golden afternoon light. White and soft blue blossoms lined the path. Maya's colleagues, Adrian's trusted partners, and both families stood together to witness. Maya wore a light flowing gown, her hair adorned with simple flowers. When she reached him, she looked up and saw not the cold mogul, but a man trembling with the weight of giving away his entire life. "Do you," the minister asked, "choose to walk beside him through storms and through peace?" "I do," Maya whispered, her voice shaking but firm. "And I do," Adrian replied. "Even if I lose everything, I cannot lose you." Applause erupted. Confetti burst like fireworks. But in their world, only one thing existed, the long kiss sealed in cheers. A vow written forever. A few months later, morning sunlight spilled into their new home. Not extravagant, but filled with warmth and laughter. In the kitchen, Maya wore an apron, carefully brewing coffee, the scent mingling with the softness of the day. From behind, warm arms wrapped around her waist. Adrian rested his chin on her shoulder, whispering into her ear, "The day you bandaged me, .. double quotes." He paused, lips brushing her hair. "You bandaged my whole life," Maya shivered, half laughing, half moved. She turned to wrap her arms around his neck, eyes misting. "Then let me keep doing it because I'm not just your nurse. I'm your woman." Adrian smiled, a smile no longer cold, but filled with peace. He bent down to kiss her, sweet as the morning coffee in her hands. Outside, the city roared on. But in that small kitchen, in the scent of coffee, in the strength of their embrace, Adrian and Maya knew they had found a power greater than all others: love. Grateful you're here with Millionaire Mysteries. Subscribe to keep getting wonderful stories like this. See ya tomorrow.